because we weren't starting yet.
I'm sure we'll have some stragglers coming on in too, but welcome. And here we go. So in the chat, if you would like to introduce yourself, say what campus you're from, what content area you teach, what grade level, and then 3 things. So if you're headed to a deserted island, what 3 things are you bringing with you? What 3 things are you bringing with you? Hey, Allison. I was trying to think about this earlier, what I would bring. I think Kat mentioned last time fire starter and fishing equipment. I think that's smart. I may jump on that board. A machete.
I'm in the same boat, right? Survivor. Anybody like the Survivor watchers? Okay.
I used to. I haven't in a while, but I used to.
Yeah.
Naked and afraid.
Yep. Naked and afraid is the 3 things you need.
A volleyball. Oh, fighting words. Fighting words. Kelly.
Oh.
It's the first round of the playoffs, y'all.
Oh my gosh. You're so brave. You're so brave. Awesome. Well, I'm with you guys. Survival of the fittest, and hopefully we'll all survive. Okay, so let's get started. And I wonder, so the sound didn't. Can y'all hear the sound better this time? Perfect. All right, so this afternoon, thank you all for joining us. We're excited to be here with you. We're going to be talking about family engagement. So this webinar discusses the family connection, and it's going to be a crash course in creating powerful partnerships. Family engagement. All right. And my name is Megan Oberman, and I work at UT Ypsi. And I'm so thankful to be here with you all this afternoon. So let's go over the objectives and kind of the outline of the course. We're going to understand why family engagement matters and how inviting families in creates a positive impact with student academic achievement, also the overall success within our classroom, and it enhances the supportive learning community. Really, it helps the whole campus and not just inside of our classroom walls when we get to invite families in. So we're going to identify the impact and highlight effective communication, positive relationships, and cultural competencies. And then we'll also discuss, we won't necessarily have a lot of time to create an action plan, but hopefully this webinar will give you a lot of ideas that will help you begin to invite families into the conversation of student success. So we're going to talk about practical and realistic strategies, communication plans and initiatives that are going to increase student achievement and enhance your classroom culture. So some webinar workshop norms. Enter with an open mindset. We are going to be doing some typing, maybe unmuting. So just be sure we've all seen those horrible instances of comments made being on Zoom. So just make sure, PSA, to mute your mic if you're not speaking. Also, let's try to create connections with cameras on. I know it's the end of the day. I know some of us might still have a class going on. Some of us might be trying to drive home. So if you're able to, let's try to have our cameras on. remove distractions, and if you need to, go ahead and add a virtual background if needed. Let's see. Also participate. What? At the end, you'll have your typical sign in for attendance as well as next steps that you can take. Let's go ahead and dive into this quote. Let's read together and then reflect. What is this quote going to mean to you? So in order for family school partnerships to succeed, the adults responsible for children's education must learn and grow, just as they support learning and growth among students inside of their classrooms. So my question for you, let me go ahead and mute this. My question for you is, do you agree with this quote? Do you agree? Do you disagree? And why? What do you all think? Do you agree with this quote or disagree with this quote? Absolutely. Everyone benefits from growth. For sure, Sarah. I agree, because without their support and knowledge, the children won't be able to grow in the classroom. Yep, we got to practice what we preach, right? That's what we want from our students. So we need to hold ourselves to that same accountability standard. All right. So here's a resource that we created for you. If you would like to click the link in the chat, and it will take you to this Google Doc. Feel free to make a copy of it if you'd like to take some notes. But you're going to discover it talks about each of the 7 keys that we're going to be highlighting today. And then what can you share regarding each of these 7 keys? What can you do? And then maybe what are some things that might need to change? So again, if you'd like to click on the link in the chat, and that will take you here. Oh no, So the 7 keys to create powerful partnerships and family connections. Thing number 1 that we're going to focus on will be communication strategies. So here we go. Before we start talking about effective communication, we need to first figure out what our campuses are using to communicate with families and what methods of communication do we have access to. So let's think about those. Type a few out in the chat. What does your campus use to communicate with families? And what are some methods that you might have access to? And then that last question, what do families prefer me to use to communicate? We received some amazing data. Recently, we sent out a needs assessment to all of our Gear Up families. And what they said is they want to hear from the school more frequently, just in different ways. So one thing that they wish schools used more was actually emails, specific emails to their student, as well as any invitations for upcoming events at the campus. Another thing that families wanted to use, text messaging. It goes directly to their phone, right? So hopefully some of these, Parent Square, Parent Portal, email, Class Dojo, I love these, Skyward, Gmail, hopefully you all are able to send communications directly via text message to your families, because that's what they want. Let's give them what they want, right? Another kind of cool strategy, we pulled them on social media platforms that they prefer. And think in your head, what social media platform do you think they said? Well, if you're thinking Facebook, you are correct. You are correct. They would like to see our campuses on Facebook. And one surprising thing we found out of this data, there was such a high number of families who are on YouTube. And so if you're thinking about becoming a podcaster or creating a YouTube channel, they're on there. And as teachers, we get so busy. We like to spend our time wisely. And so here's some time savers for you. Oh, one thing that I forgot to mention is after the webinars, you will receive access to this PowerPoint. And within the PowerPoint, we've gone in and have an accumulation of tons of resources and links in the speaker notes for you to go ahead and click on. And we've really tracked down some amazing resources for you to save you time. And so I'm sure all of you might be familiar with Canva. We all love Canva, right? As well as teachers pay teachers. And so know that some avenues on teachers pay teachers, you do have to pay for. However, the way a lot of people will hook you in is they'll provide this super amazing resource for free. And then they're like, oh, I have all these amazing other resources that you have to pay 99 cents for. So very interesting. Also, newsletter templates. And I'm going to make sure I'm on the same. So as far as newsletter templates, in Canva, we're going to provide you a link that gives you a variety of newsletter templates that are already created. I wish I would have had things like this when I was teaching, because you just go in and plug in your information. Also, if you're not familiar with Mailmerge, it might be time to become an expert. I am definitely not the expert of the group as far as Mailmerge. You're going to want to hit up Candy. If you're interested in learning more about Mailmerge, we've included a YouTube video that will help you if you're wanting to get started on that. And the way she was able to utilize that in her classroom is, we all have the typical progress report, and you can click certain numbers, and the certain numbers correlate with student performance. So there's not a whole lot of room in the typical progress reports that you're given to give a lot of feedback to students. Sometimes you can leave comments, but what Candy would do is she would utilize Mailmerge to make specific progress reports for her students. Excellent idea. As well as teacher web pages, Google Classroom, as well as maybe it's time and you're interested in blogging. And so you can set up a classroom blog that way. You'll note throughout the presentation, there are ideas that come up. Bright ideas. So why not create a department newsletter where you can collaborate with other teachers in your department, and that way you're able to alleviate some of that stress and divvy up the workload. Continuing with effective communication strategies, some tips for clear and concise communication. And this can be with anyone, not just communicating with families. But let's make sure we start with our intent. So make sure to define your purpose and goals before engaging in that conversation with your family member or student. An idea here is go ahead and create an outline or agenda that highlights some of the things, because I know when I first started teaching and I had to have these difficult conversations, I like to have a visual so that I would stay on track with the conversation. Also, practice active listening. So focus on your speaker, provide feedback when appropriate, choose your words carefully, be sure you're conveying your message accurately and respectfully. And then the one that sometimes we forget about is actually the follow-up. So recap and make sure you're checking in with your family to ensure that they're understanding what you're expressing. And that way you can go ahead and address any concerns as they come up. That way you're not separating and leaving time to fester. Maybe they happen to take something a different way than what you were trying to say. So it's better just to do a recap within that meeting. Be sure so there is such a high importance of regular and specific updates and feedback for your student progress to families. This is gonna save your life. So oftentimes, here's an example that we can use. So oftentimes progress reports are coming out. Maybe several students are failing the class. So sometimes we go ahead and send out this mass email that says, please check your student grade. If they're failing, they can do test corrections. And it's very generalized, right? So next time, let's go ahead and analyze the data that we have, really target the students that we know are failing, and send those specific messages to the families and let them know things to focus on: attendance, grades, and behavior. So another idea, be sure to keep a record of conversations that you're having with families and include the date, the name, maybe a brief summary. And I'll tell you, when I first started teaching, I was, and still am, the notebook queen. I have to write everything down in a spiral. However, I started noticing, oh, Google is amazing, right? So I started using Google Sheets. And the reason I did that is I could aggregate the data. And I could control search also and say, oh, I've talked to your family member 3 times, but I haven't talked to the student's family member at all. Just a little tip there. Please respond. This is just kind of another PSA. Encourage two-way communication for feedback and any questions. So shoot for this. Shoot for a 48-hour or less response time with our families. And so just highlighting another idea here, if you're going to be absent, if you're going to be out of office, on your email, it might be a good idea for you to put up an out of office auto response with who to contact in your absence. And so you can add any helpful links to that, directly to that. For instance, I have a family member reaching out to me. They have a question. Oh, who's my student's counselor? I'm not sure. I'm really familiar with you, Megan. I've talked with you before. Could you help me and figure out who my student's counselor is? Well, I may be absent, right, for a period of time, or that day that the parent reached out. Boom, I have that on my automatic out of message. If your last name is between S and Z, this is your counselor, right? And so it's a way that you can just directly get that information back to the family in a speedy time. So now we're going to talk about strategies for the initial family teacher conversations. So a few introductory talking points. Be sure, above all, respect their time, right? We love time savers. We don't like our time to be wasted. So just keep that in mind with our families too. Keep it short, keep it to the point. Try to present yourself with an attitude of excitement, positive, politeness. Be sure to state who you are, right? You have to state your name, state the school that you work at and the position that you have and how you know their student. Provide a message that is supportive. So reaching out to, be sure to reach out. You're going to introduce myself, and I enjoy having your student in my class. Maybe briefly review a couple of goals that you have for your students this school year, as well as services offered through your campus. And a good thing to talk to the parents about would be tutoring. Like, oh, I offer tutoring in my classroom from 7:30 to 8 every morning. And so it's a good idea to let the parent know that. And be sure, leave time at the end for a Q&A to answer any questions that the family may have. So let's get into it. Let's see if I can do it. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Good afternoon. Is this Candy Vera?
Yes.
Hi there. This is Megan Oberman calling you from San Marcos High School. I have your student in my math class this year. Do you have a moment? Am I catching you at a good time?
No, this is not a good time for me.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. What time would you be more available? And I'm
I'm a
happy to
very
give
busy
you a call
person.
back. You what? Say it again.
I'm a very busy person.
I love it. I love it. Well, look, your student's amazing. I just had to say that, and I hope to talk to you soon.
Oh, thank you. It's very rare that I get a call that doing something good. What has she been doing?
She's just doing such a fabulous job right now in my class. And I definitely, Miss Farah, I look forward to partnering with you this school year. I just wanted to reach out and introduce myself and to see if you had any questions so far.
No, I don't have any questions right now.
Okay, sounds great. Well, before I go, is there anything else that I should know about your student?
No, I know she can be lazy sometimes, but I think she listens pretty good.
Well, I think she's amazing. And please know that you can reach out to me through email or at this phone number if needed. And I look forward to our year ahead together. Thank you so much for your time. And I hope you have a wonderful day. And I hope to talk to you soon.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you.
Sweet sometimes. Just kidding. Okay. So we're providing you a script that you oh we're providing you some script opportunities that you'll be able to just work through and kind of make it your own. Kind of what fits your voice, right? Teachers or families don't want to hear the same exact script from every single teacher. So here's one. If they do not answer, which does happen often, I've left a voicemail or two in my day. Here's an example of that script you can also use. Be sure to include your email address as a form of communication that they can respond back to you. One other thing, we see this quite often. Disconnected, there's no voicemail available, their mailbox is full. I might be guilty of that on occasion. Also, it could be the wrong number. So go ahead and in your Google Sheet or in your notebook, make a note of that. And my advice to you is to reach out to an administrator, or if your campus has a parent liaison, to see if they have a good working number for you, because oftentimes they do. Also, if you have a Gear Up coordinator on your campus, they might be able to help you track that information down. All right, key 2, our second key is going to be building relationships. So let's make sure that we are creating a welcoming and inclusive classroom for all of our students. Before we can really develop that relationship with family members, we need to be sure that we're developing that relationship with their student, because it does start with that student. So tip number 1, please know the names of all of your students and make sure you're pronouncing them correctly. So even if it might be a challenging name for you to say, they may not want a nickname. And so just talk to the student and ask them to repeat, how do you say your name? And ask them, would you like a nickname? Second tip, organize the chaos. Oftentimes our classrooms can just get very chaotic. Papers everywhere, Chromebooks over here, cords over here. So ask your students to become involved in helping you organize your chaos. Be sure that students feel safe in their space. Make sure, another tip, current work is posted around your classroom. So as you look around your classroom, make sure it's current. So it's within the unit that you're currently working toward. And make sure that the information on this is accurate, on their work is accurate. You don't want to have someone walking around the room and seeing incorrect information from students up on the wall. Also, be sure to set aside some time for housekeeping. An idea here is take brain breaks with your classes. Has anyone heard of Go Noodle? Anybody? Go Noodle is amazing. So again, we're going to give you these website links. I used this, they they have a bunch of different things. They get your students up and kind of moving a little bit. At first, the students are going to be like looking at each other like, what are we doing? But eventually they're going to start to ask for these little brain breaks. And so another tip you could do is ask, it's called ask or answer time. So you know your popsicle sticks that you have with your students and you're pulling names out. Oh, you pull a name out. Kelly, would you like to ask or answer a question?
Answer.
And she's going to say, answer. Awesome. So, question for you. Would you rather have a dog or a cat?
Can I have both?
Yes. Why would you want both? I love it. So, again, and then the ask piece of that is it allows your students to ask you questions. And so then they get to track you down and ask you questions. Just another little brain break. It takes very minimal time, and you will notice it maximizes the relationship building within your classroom. So with building positive relationships, personal invitations will go such a long way with your families. Be sure to personally reach out to them and invite them to different events and activities. This will establish trust as well as constant and consistent communication. So if you set a target and you're like, hey, families, I'm going to be sending out a newsletter twice a month. Be sure you're following up on your end there and try to send that newsletter out twice a month. That way they'll start to recognize, oh, I'm consistently getting these. Also, a question for you to think about. How are you recognizing students and families and showing off their strengths? So a couple of ideas for you here. Idea one, so try to incorporate these: a student of the week, a star student, a student of the month. What I would do with my star students, I would write these handwritten notes, and it would be on like the certificate paper. Just every so often, if I notice a student was really struggling in my class, but they did something amazing, they helped their peer pick their books up off the floor, or they stood up for someone, and I witnessed this, I would write a positive note to them. It's important to recognize students in different ways. And so also you could do it weekly, you could do it monthly. Another idea is a Google form for families to fill out where they can document for you any skills, talents, or experiences that they have. And then the cool thing about that is you can share that with your class. So let me give you an example. When I sent out this Google Doc, I had one of our parents mentioned that he could fly drones, and he did that. And so I'm like, yes, could we do that? Would you be able to come out and show my students your process, how to fly drones? How cool. And so he came out and showed the students the drones. Super cool. And that went along with an activity that we were doing. It was graphing time and distance. And so students are able to conceptualize information in a different way. And your families are an excellent source to help you with this too. Key 3 is cultural competence. So enhancing your cultural awareness and cultural competence. Be sure that you know your students come from very diverse backgrounds, as well as when they go home, that home life could look very different. And there are a bunch of different family units. So it's important to recognize and be culturally sensitive in this communication. So be sure you're seeking to understand these cultural differences. Be sure to ask questions and to clarify maybe any misunderstandings that come up. Do not make assumptions about families, because every family member wants the best for their student. Make sure also, y'all, the golden rule, right? Treat everybody with respect, dignity, kindness, and compassion. And I know we're all really great at that. So be sure you're encouraging a culturally inclusive curriculum. So take a look at your students and say, hey, do all of my students have a voice inside my classroom? Am I making sure that I'm representing everyone? Excellent. So, resources that are soon to be banned. Take them while they're still available, take them while they're hot. So, we have courses in the LMS. It is the Diversity and Equity series, and Candy oversees these. Candy created these, right, Candy? Am I getting that right? Yes. And so take a look at these amazing courses. Oh, they're only an hour each. So you can learn more about cultural competence, culturally responsive teaching strategies, first generation college students, because a lot of our students will be first generation college students. Also, gender and LGBTQ+, race and systems of inequality, as well as social justice. So these are amazing courses. And I know you all are working on your courses too. And so hit up this section too before we have to get rid of them. We may just change the name or something though. Another resource for you, this right here, I wish we had more time. Again, there's so much we could talk about regarding family engagement. However, we have limited time. So take a look at this TED Talk when you have, I think it's 15 minutes or so. It surrounds cultural diversity and it's called The Sum of Our Parts. It's excellent. Again, I wish we had time. All right, moving on to key number 4, which is handling difficult conversations. Now, it's just a matter of time before we all experience difficult conversations. So how do we navigate this? How do we navigate these challenging discussions? Number 1, it's important to focus on empathy and active listening, meaning you're going to be looking at this from not just your perspective, but from the parent's perspective. I mean, and really understanding some of our families work 4 jobs. They don't have a lot of time. Some of our students live with grandparents. There might be language barriers. So it's just really figuring that out and seeing things from another perspective. So some strategies for de-escalation and finding a common ground. Number 1, let's all take a breath, right? Difficult conversations are hard to have. Have purpose and stick to the facts. That's why that agenda piece that we were talking about is going to come in clutch for you. So find out, propose this to the family, and I guarantee you it's going to change the whole conversation. Propose that you're problem solving this together. How do we solve this together? Your students talking a lot. Is everything going okay? How can I help? How can I be a partner in meeting this goal that I have for your student? However, sometimes we need to bring in a third party. Sometimes we need to bring in a counselor. We need to bring in someone with more experience, maybe an admin, and that's okay. Know that that's okay. If we have to bring in a third party, that's okay. You can't be the expert. We cannot be the expert in absolutely everything. One thing that we do not want you to put up with, disclaimer, please do not put up with any mistreatment. If you are feeling uncomfortable, if someone is cursing at you, you don't have to put up with that. You can excuse yourself from the situation, track down an admin, and get some support. One super cool thing you can try too is role play. So working with others to practice having these difficult conversations, because it's always better to be prepared. Maybe ask a trusted colleague or your mentor for some further guidance. If you're experiencing a challenging situation, we're here to help with that. Also, this Crucial Conversations is an excellent book. And this probably was one of the most challenging things for me when I first started teaching, was how do I have even these challenging and difficult conversations? So this is just an excellent resource for you to take a look at. Another idea is maybe you all have PLC time where you're able to meet with your colleagues. Maybe take the first 5 or 10 minutes to practice having these challenging conversations during your PLC time. Let's see where we're at. I think we actually have time for this. So we're going to drop a link in the chat. I want you, and the reason being is I want you to check out one, I would love your feedback on this question. 2, Jamboard is super cool, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. So we will get that in the chat for you. I think it's on, I believe it's on that link. I think it's at the bottom. Okay, awesome. Thanks, team. So this is Jamboard. Maybe you've worked with it before. So let's answer this question, and you'll see on the side, on that left-hand side, there are different things. There's a highlighter, there's an eraser, there is a sticky note. You can add an image, a circle, a text box. And so I'm going to go ahead and add a little sticky note. Ooh, for sure. Yep. Not having correct contact information, absolutely. Dealing with hostile parents, that will definitely happen. Let's see. I went ahead and I added an image in there, if you can see it. So dealing with parents isn't in there because I am young. Yes. Yes. Almost like having to prove yourself. I hear that. Yep. Contact information. Yeah, these are awesome. These are great. So we're going to take a look at these and figure out how we can support you all with some of these challenges that you might be experiencing. For sure, language barriers too. And we're going to debrief and talk about these. So super awesome. I wanted y'all to check out this resource, and we appreciate your feedback here. We're going to keep it moving. So number 5, involving families in learning is going to be our next step. So provide your families some at-home learning activities, maybe some family projects, sign the planner. My students had a planner when they were in my class. And so after the warm-up, I would go around and stamp their planners, and then they would receive like a bonus point when they turned their warm-ups into me when I would grade them, if they got a family signature in their planner. Also, it's a great tool to have conversations back and forth with people at home. Also, give the families conversation starters, and we have a link to a document that will have a ton of conversation starters that you can maybe use in your newsletter. Also, poll the families and use it for your lesson. Maybe send out a poll. What is your favorite holiday? And then you can kind of weave those things from your families into your lessons. The tell me about your student in a million words or less. This was not us. I found there was an 8th grade teacher who did this with her classes, and she got excellent responses from it too. So another idea that we have is a suggestion box. And I wish, I have not done this. So if anyone does this, I would love your feedback on this. I think it could be a super powerful tool, but send home slips of paper for families to leave a suggestion or positive comment, and then students can return it to the box. See if it's appropriate. It may work out. I'd love to know more from you. So the next thing, it's important as teachers to show up, right? And you'll have these amazing conversations with your students and your families, oftentimes outside of the classroom. So attend open house events, have student grade level showcases, maybe an 8th grade graduation, awards night, breakfast of champions, engage the community in your events. If you want more information about how to incorporate some of these activities, let us know and we're happy to help you with that. The Breakfast of Champions was something that my campus, Goodnight Middle School, created back in the day, and it was phenomenal. It was an amazing tool that merged our teachers and merged our families together, and we were recognizing students all at the same time. Here are a few more ideas for you. Get content specific. So we held an ELA glow-in-the-dark reading night. That was a lot of fun. Little kids had flashlights and they were reading, and we had a bunch of glow sticks. It was fun. The math night, we incorporated math lessons with the haunted house. So talking about perimeter, area, those types of things. The STEM night that our science department did, phenomenal. So they invited the fire department out and they did an egg drop challenge outside. The fire department got up in their ladder, dropped the eggs. It was so much fun. And then the history, we did a celebration of our San Marcos culture. We had tons of community members there, as well as there's a local museum, the Calaboose Museum in San Marcos. And so we invited them and they came out and gave presentations for us. Woo! Cha-ching! Do your money dance. This is where you're going to get a huge bang for your buck, is having parent. We're going to go for family teacher conferences. Be sure you're always inviting the student to your family teacher conferences. Like we talked about previously, have that agenda already created, print out some copies, some things you may want to include. Be sure we're using data, report card, progress report, include the transcript. Include all the great information for your families and print them out and have them available. Partner up on a plan. Again, you want to be a partner with the parent in creating success for that student. Also, go beyond the bad news. Highlight the student's strengths for sure. Another idea, random idea kind of. I don't know if you're familiar with this station on Pandora. It's called the Vitamin String Quartet. And it might be a good idea just to have some calming music in the background, right? During some of these conversations. Anyway, check it out. The Vitamin String Quartet is awesome. Maybe I'll try to find it on my phone at the conclusion. We'll see. Level 6, understanding family dynamics. This is a PSA and a recognition. This is not a holistic list by any means either. Please know that there is a nuclear family, right? 2 parents and children, extended family, grandparent family. Many of our students, their grandparents, their aunties are raising the student. And so it's just important for us to have an awareness of this. Also, single parents, step family. That was my family growing up. My parents were divorced, and so that was me. Also, adoptive families and foster families. things to keep in mind. Also, here's some strategies for understanding family dynamics. And this may be, on that resource that we gave you where that third column said changes, this may impact that third column of changes, right? So avoiding phrases such as, oh, take this home and give it to mom and dad. Change that up. Make sure this goes home to your families. Also, work in family diversity into your lessons. So an example of a grammar exercise, include phrases such as her dad's, his guardian, and so on. Instead of crafts or lessons having to do with Mother's Day or Father's Day, maybe use a more generalized approach, such as who's important in your life. Also, all about me activities. We've all done these, right? These are fun. Instead of asking students to draw a picture of their house, because some might be in a shelter or in foster care, instead, maybe draw a possession that's important to you. All right. Woo! Number 7, here we go. Utilizing resources. This one is our final one. So we're utilizing the resources to make a plan. We're going to tie it all up in a pretty bow. Let's think about this slide for just a second. Do our families feel like visitors, or do our families feel like a guest? What do they feel like? So a visitor, right? You get a visitor's pass when you go to the school. Typically, it's somebody who comes and goes. Not much preparation on our part, not much thought afterward. Instead, maybe let's start using terms like a guest. Typically, as a person who's cared for, has been intentionally invited. A participant is someone who is looking to have this excellent, specific experience with us, right? Be our guest. It is with deepest pride and greatest pleasure that we welcome you tonight. So just something to think about, how our families feel. Remember, family engagement is a process. It is a process. It is not an event. It is not even, y'all, a series of events. It is a process. It's an ongoing process. So thinking about, what will your process be regarding family engagement? Also, family engagement is not necessarily about doing more, but doing what we're already doing, but better and a little different. And so what are some things, what are some ideas, some activities? What are you going to be doing differently? And what are you going to be trying? And so in the chat, if you will hit us up with a little tidbit. What are you going to be doing differently? What is something that you would like to try regarding communication, regarding family engagement? So let's answer that in the chat. Peyton, I love that idea. Sending more positive notes home. Send out a newsletter. Randomly contact parents. I love it. Like random acts of kindness. So awesome. Quick story. So those STAR student certificates that we did, sometimes my team and I did, I wrote one to my student, Edward Pettis. So as a Gear Up coordinator, I taught Edward in 6th grade. And then I was his Gear Up coordinator. He recently graduated back in May. So he was telling me, we went on a college visit to Texas State right before graduation, which is where he ended up going. Anyway, he was telling me that he still had that certificate up in his room. So you never know. And when you get a positive note from an administrator, from a colleague, I mean, we like to keep them. Some of us like to keep them. And so you never know the impact what you do. You never know what that impact will have on a student. So I love your responses. Sending a newsletter. Yep. Well, amazing. Whoop. All right. So now we are coming to the final